So welcome to the first um, video. It is on, welcome to women's lacrosse as well, but it is on a topic of professionalism. We're going to cover a few points that are kind of important, and as we go along, hopefully it makes a lot of sense. It's stuff that we don't have to cover so much in depth in class, and this way we can um, get the information to you as needed. Um, U.S. lacrosse and women's lacrosse, of course, has a governing body with U.S. lacrosse, and I know you're all members now, so that's great. And we're going to go through a couple of these things: professionalism, ethics, and the structure of lacrosse itself, particularly the women's game. It is a national governing body. These are their sort of points of emphasis and their mission. Um, and I think the bottom one is a key one is respecting all participants, and that's a big role that we have: respecting the players, respecting the coaches. We're going to get into more detail about that when we get to game management and the play of the game. Three kind of key points to remember constantly when we're going through this journey to getting to become an official and also as an official is that every time we step on the field, these are the three things that we want to kind of constantly have in our tool bank, in our memory. Safety is of utmost importance, particularly at this point because we have a push on some levels for the girls' game to have equipment, to have headgear. Some headgear is allowed, but for the most part, we want to maintain the integrity of the game the way it has always been for women. And that would include not having helmets and wearing that. So having a focus and attention to safety is very, very significant. Of course, we want the girls to have the fun that they've joined the sport in the first place for, and to for us in our job to make sure that we're calling a fair and an accurate game. Of course, you're representing U.S. lacrosse when you're out on the field. You're representing the game itself and certainly yourself. We're going to talk a lot about that as we move through these next several slides. Within our own organization, U.S. lacrosse, of course, breaks everything down into smaller bodies, which is important for us. We have our local board, which is this yellow one down at the very bottom. We have members in which you will be a member of our board. Most people have said that that's what they're planning on doing. If you are a member of our board, then we have a president, and we have members of an executive committee that constitute not only the president, but a vice president, a secretary, and a treasurer. We have someone who is an assigner who takes care of making sure we get all the right people in the right games. And we also have a person who is a rules interpreter. We have a state coordinator, of course, we have a regional chair, and then at the head of all of this is U.S. lacrosse has people on a subcommittee for officials, and those people represent us when going to large governing bodies that include players and coaches. In order to become a U.S. lacrosse certified official, which is on the journey you're on now and the track we're headed for, having a U.S. lacrosse membership, which we took care of, we're going to work to get that annual test done before you finish our classes. Making sure that you attend an interpretation meeting, which we have covered in our initial letter to you. And then, of course, you'll stand for a rating. We'll cover a lot of this in class, but just to give you a heads up of sort of the process and what happens as we move forward here in getting you out on the field. We have some skills sets that we need and the ratings that you're going to be vying for. So in level 1, 2, and 3, at this point, your main attention will be on a level 1 if you are an adult official. In our chapter, 18 and younger will be considered a junior official, and then we have 18 and older who would be vying for a level 1 certification. In our case, though, in our chapter, our level 1 in the first year will not be rated as a level 1 to handle any high school games. We will talk about that a little bit more in class, but we have a transitional class that after a year of solid youth experience and getting a lot of play and experience in that regard under your belt, after a year of that, you'll take a transitional class and stand for your level 1 or 2 at that point rating. And hopefully you'll become much more proficient at the two-man system. Level 3 requires a different sort of setup, and we won't really be talking about that until you get to that place where you're ready to stand for your level 3. So that's sort of how it sets up for us in our chapter and also aligns with US lacrosse. So here it is again. You can stand for your level 1 as an adult and then get a recertification of that level 1. Um, those leveled ratings last at a maximum of 3 years and a minimum of 1 year. So you could be certified as a level 1 official for 3 years and would not need to stand for a rating again until 3 years are over. However, if you'd like to increase your rating, and you're welcome to anytime in that time period stand for a higher leveled rating. It just requires that you would bring that to someone's attention. The junior official, of course, you can't even be considered for any of these leveled ratings until you are older than 18. So we have 5 core areas that we're going to cover in our discussions, and I'm going to kind of break that down for you right now in a little more detail. So we're kind of in this red area of professionalism, responsibility, ethics. That's what we're discussing tonight in this video. Arriving on time, proper uniform, being in good standing, a lot of those things that we just addressed a few seconds ago. Then we're going to be talking about positioning on the field coverage, how you move around the play of the game, having that knowledge and judgment to make calls in a timely fashion and to distinguish, major and minor fouls one from the other. Then it's the actual mechanics of, signaling and administering the actual penalty and how that works. And then finally, how we work as a team, communicating, and a nice word for that, we like to use comportment to describe it. So we're going to break those 5 core down over the course of our class. So just for you to be familiar with some of them. And we're focused on this piece of professionalism in our game. U.S. members attend a rules interpretation meeting. We've talked about that. You're preparing for the games with your fitness level as well as your mental awareness, and also how you dress and present yourself with the proper equipment for the game. The 2 things, physical and mental preparation, of course, have to really align, and so that you're at the peak performance right there in the middle to be able to be mentally sharp out on the field as well as physically ready. So if you haven't started yet, start to get yourself in some sort of physical condition and shape. It is utmost important because this is a fast game and there is definitely a lot of running, full field coverage from 100 yards to 100 yards back and forth pretty rapidly. Mental preparation in that regard, reading the rule book, reviewing the rules regularly, looking at interpretation videos. I cannot emphasize enough how often all of us who are officials do this, and how often we communicate with each other to make sure we're getting the right calls and getting the right information. If there's any preseason practices and games, once you become a rated official, definitely take advantage of using that. We're going to cover some field training information when we see each other in class as well. Of course, physical preparation, this goes without saying. You can pick up a lot of magazines and get up to date on how to get yourself prepped and ready for a variety of things, and they're not too far different from getting ready to be an official. Stretching, eating healthy, cardiovascular, I'll add in there to get some good night's sleep, and preseason practice again comes up for that physical piece, just so you can kind of get your legs moving and ready for it each season. Here's the dress code, and we're going to go over that in more detail as well, but we do wear black and white stripes. We have a kilt or pants. Shorts are also on option, and all the accessories are black. Shoes, socks, visors, hats, and black outerwear, with the exception of, once you get together with your team. And then there are cards and flags, and we'll cover that as well, not to mention, of course, your very significant and important whistle. This is your specific detailed equipment checks. We were just talking about the whistle, a yellow flag. We are going to issue this to you, a sportsmanship card if applicable. It is applicable in the state of New Jersey. We do read a sportsmanship notice at the captain's meeting, but it's only for varsity. So you probably would not run into that situation at the start just yet. And the rest of these things are also important. We're going to cover that when we do some things in the class. I think this goes without saying. I mean, there's a lot of things here that kind of, are sort of, I would imagine that, if you're going to be an official, you're going to embrace a lot of these things. So just as a refresher, just read over them and make sure that, these are a part of sort of your plan when you are approaching the field each and every single time. So in conclusion, of course, you never get a second chance to make a first impression, and I think that's clear. And when you walk on the field, to do it with a level of professionalism, and to have all those things that we just talked about in this video, or I just talked about, will just only help to enhance that. So I will see you in class, and I hope you enjoyed getting some of this very important but not necessarily surprising information.